doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
Todd Wood from CDM's Armed Forces Press. There's been a lot of reporting that, yes, it's about drugs in Venezuela, but also possibly about election fraud electronically. Do you have any comment on that? And also, are assets, we've heard that special operations aviation assets are exercising for direct action missions in that region. Can you confirm that at all?
On your first question, I would refer you to the State Department. I think they would probably be able to give you a better answer on that. But in terms of your second question, I can tell you that we are conducting training missions and exercises. We've got the forward aircraft carrier now that is down there in the Southcom region. And as I said, the Department's a planning organization. So a big part of that planning is doing trainings and make sure that we're ready at a moment's notice to protect our interests and to protect the American people from narco-terrorism.
Survivors, to be clear, after that first strike.
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire or smoke. You can't see anything. You got digital. This is called the fog of war. This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all. And then you want to throw out really irresponsible terms about American heroes, about the judgment that they made. I wrote a whole book on this topic because of what politicians and the press does to warfighters. President Trump has empowered commanders to do what is necessary, which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people. We support them, and we will stop the poisoning of the American people.
When I watch what is happening in Minnesota, the land of 1,000 lakes, or however many lakes they have, they got a lot of lakes, but this beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off, and now I'm understanding, and you're going to look at that, Scott, I hear they ripped off Somalians, ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. And we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. No, we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let it continue to happen. What Biden did to this country by allowing all these people, and I call them animals in many cases, I think they're animals, to come into our country and destroy our country and let all those drugs pour in. Let people just walk across the border like it was nothing. You look at them, a lot of them, you know, you say, oh, let's not discriminate. I'm not talking about color. I'm just talking about you look into the eyes of some of these people. We're smart. And you see a killer. Come on in. Just come on in. 11,888 murderers. Many of them committed more than one murder. He allowed them into our country, totally unvetted, totally unchecked. But he also allowed drugs to come in at record numbers. And hundreds of thousands of people a year died. And we're taking those son of a bitches out, yeah.
Welcome to the SCIF. Next time we're in the Pentagon briefing room, we'll be bringing a much more technology and briefing equipment. We were a little unsure on the logistics here, so now we know, but next time we'll be much more prepared. I want to say hello to the crew. They have been active already. Thank you very much. And also check out whatfinger.com, great aggregator site that posts a lot of our content. We've had a great week here at the Pentagon. We're going to be doing a lot of interviews with some serious people later today, meeting the Secretary of War himself. And so that should be extremely interesting. So I'm your host, Todd Wood. Today is December 3rd. Here's your mission brief. Russia and Witkoff meetings productive. We've got a great story up on CDM right now on what happened during that meeting. Pictures that TASS put out, the Russian media service in Moscow, with Witkoff and Kushner walking around with Kirill Dmitriev, who's the Pentagon representative and kind of the money man that's been working with these two guys. And another announcement, the Zelensky meeting with Witkoff was canceled. So that's kind of a snub to the Ukrainian leader and a sign that Trump is moving forward with peace with Russia and also probably significant economic cooperation. So we look forward to that. We'll be talking about that later in the show. Soros Indivisible continues attacking Avelo Airlines. We've been big on this story. They've been flying ICE flights, deporting people out of the country. And Soros doesn't like that. So Indivisible has been protesting him in Connecticut, but also in New York. So this is a story we're going to stay on. And we've got a great story up on armedforces.press, our military channel, the Pentagon briefing, at least a cut of it. And they said they 100% know who these narco-terrorists are and gave an update on the different numbers of ships attacked and individuals killed in that operation. An interesting story on our Manhattan paper, the Manhattan.press, that Hyperloop Leap has come forward in travel underground, the boring company that Elon Musk has been pushing with also other competitors. Big news there. We'll talk about later in the show. And Trump yesterday tweeted that he is looking forward to Obama's military tribunal. Yes, he said it. So we'll see. We'll be back in the studio tomorrow, as I said, but we'll get some stories here after this break. Stay with us. Be right back on the SCIF.
Celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7. I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. Oh, the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies, they will all turn out.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We got Chris Gleason on the next segment on election fraud. Florida style and across the country. He's got a lot to say about the lack of discussion of ES&S and other machines besides Dominion, the mail-in ballot voting, and the voter rolls. So that should be a very good segment. Stay with us for that. Let's walk through a few stories. I've got the Trump envoy is canceled. Trump envoys cancel meeting with Zelensky after their meeting in Moscow. This is a big deal. It means they're basically snubbing Zelensky and the Ukrainian regime in favor of peace and moving forward with some agreement with Moscow. And then we'll probably further pull out of Ukraine. Europe is blustering. They think they have a lot of leverage in the situation, but they really don't have money, troops, or anything to provide to the Ukrainians if the Americans back away. So that's the big story that we're going to continue to follow. We've been on it for years, but as the developments happen, we will bring them to you. This one is important. Soros-linked indivisible protests continue against New Haven's, actually they're based out of Houston, Avelo Airlines. This is the Matrix trying to shut down a very profitable entrepreneurial company. Maybe they're not profitable yet, but they're very good in how they run their operation. They've had very good, I guess, pricing during the holiday season. It's a comfortable, I've flown them several times. It's quick, it's efficient, it's affordable. And that can't happen in this environment. So again, another situation where we're trying to shut down new entrepreneurs in favor of the existing companies or the existing oligarchy. And we're going to continue to report on this and drive people, I think, to Avelo Airlines because the experience has been extremely good. So there'll be more on that, especially for my Connecticut paper. They're based out of Houston, but their hub is in New Haven. So the Connecticut paper, the Connecticut Sentinel, will continue to discuss and report on that story. By the way, here is the article on Zelensky. I've got to put that up. You can find that on cdm.press. This one is important. Well, it's essentially the briefing yesterday. We're going to play this later in the show, but the Pentagon yesterday said they 100% know who these narco-terrorists are. They went through in depth on the number of drone strikes or strikes against these ships and the number of people killed, and a good explanation of the bad reporting by the legacy media on Hegseth's comments, which were essentially false as outed by the New York Times. So you can find that on our military paper, the armedforces.press. This one is extremely interesting. Transform mobility worldwide. Hyperloop leaps forward in November. We want to dig more into this later after we get back from DC, but new entrepreneurial technologies were all over. This is similar to what the Boring Company, what Elon Musk is trying to do, fast transportation coast to coast, still in development, but looks like things are moving forward in that arena. And here's one which I guess MAGA will love. It's on the Connecticut Sentinel. Trump shared post on Truth Social. You can now 100% know we will see Obama's military tribunal. We're going to be much more in depth on the stories tomorrow in the studio when we get back. I just wanted to put out a quick show today on what's happening, and we'll be reporting later on armedforces.press and CDM on what is happening here at the Pentagon. We've got a lot of interviews we're going to do later today, and it should be a lot of information flowing on armedforces.press or AFP, our military channel. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Chris Gleason, and then later we'll have the briefing from Kingsley at the Pentagon War Room. Thank you. Stay with us.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. So there's been a lot of talk about election fraud, mainly what's going on in Venezuela. We put out a piece that there's some of the center of the fraud with the machines is based out of Venezuela, but there's a whole lot of other fraud. And our election integrity expert, Chris Gleason, is here to discuss it. So Chris, what say you on this matter?
So there's a lot of talk about Dominion. There's a lot of talk about Venezuela, but the fraud that we uncovered and the fraud that we've been documenting now for quite a while comprises a lot more than just Dominion. Mm-hmm. And one of the companies is ES&S. And so when you look at some of the statements being made, it causes me to ask some questions. Well, why not bring up ES&S? Why not bring up VR Systems? Why not bring up the poll books? Why not bring up the vote by mail fraud to include the intercepting of illegally requested vote by mail ballots that magically end up making their way back as cast? Mm-hmm. So these are all issues that coincidentally benefited certain political operatives, certain political candidates. And so, when you look at it from a critical lens, right, saying that Dominion is the root cause of all of this, and I think that that's a politically expedient way to try to deal with the issue, and not really get to the real root cause of the issue, right? And
so we're all like trained to find the narrative or find the vector of fraud or propaganda or lies or narrative that they're building. So is this whole Venezuela thing, is it like look over here and don't look over here?
I think that there's probably a great amount of truth to the Venezuela assertion. However, the fact that they are not, in particular, bringing up ES&S and the other vendors and the other vectors of fraud that we can demonstrate using the government's own data.
Yeah.
So I think we all have to be very careful to look at this through a very critical lens, because I think America needs another war right now, like we need another term of Joe Biden as president, right?
Totally.
So, has China been waging war against America for a long time? Yes, it's part of their war doctrine that they teach at the PLA War College, right? It's called unrestricted warfare. And, are they coordinating with Venezuela? Probably, have they been behind some of the smurfing money that's been laundered into campaigns? Yeah, probably. I mean, they paid for Bill Clinton's reelection campaign in 96. So what's changed, right? Who's on the take? And, I think the most critical thing that people need to be asking right now, right, is, well, if you had Venezuela and the Dominion machines compromised, well, how does that play into the fact that the ES&S machines and the Dominion machines both were used to administer elections that had modems and network devices attached, of which, mind you, if they did, that means that the election was illegally administered, that the EAC certifications were void in their entirety, and it calls into question, all of our elections going back a significant amount of time, and based on the government's own data, that we obtained via public records requests and FOIA requests and a lot of hard boots on the ground work, I can unequivocally show you just here in Pinellas County, Florida, that the elections here have been illegally administered with voting systems that had EAC certificates that were void in their entirety. And that has nothing to do whatsoever with Venezuela.
So what I think you're saying is that, well, this is what I'm saying, I guess. We have people in the government around Trump that are not doing the right thing, and they are preventing some investigations and developments, positive developments from happening, but they are also, playing a game of kind of whack-a-mole. Let's look at this and not this. And so you want to highlight all of the issues on the elections.
I mean, we have to, because we don't have legitimate elections as they are now in the gold standard of Florida. We certainly don't have them elsewhere across the United States either. And sadly, these are really difficult political questions. This is the series of fraud and these actions by insiders, by actual insiders, have created a true constitutional crisis where we no longer have consent of the governed. We have consent of the selected. And, and that's a big problem. And it's not going to go away by us dropping some bombs on Venezuela or on some of their data centers when, we know for a fact that there are a lot of bad actors here. I mean, here in Florida, you've got the head of the Republican Party of Florida, Evan Power. He's a lobbyist for the machine manufacturers.
Yeah. So this has always been a multi-vector of fraud operation. They were very smart about it with, layers of different ways, that you stop this one, you move to this one, that kind of thing. That's all been set up for decades, and it's extremely sophisticated.
Very.
And I think part of the Venezuela thing is the money coming from this alleged cartel that was, I think, funding a lot of that, and also infiltrating a lot of the local jurisdictions from the judiciary on up. So paying off, we had this thing out in Arizona where that attorney came in and said the mortgages were being bought by the cartel as payment, and that got shut up really damn quick. Do you remember that?
Oh, I sure do. Yeah. And that same thing was brought up in New Hampshire. It was going on there. I mean, it's going on. It's going on everywhere. And, we've been really looking into a lot of this judicial misconduct. And, one of the key things that we notice is that a lot of these judges, for some reason, they all have equity lines on their properties. And, they wised up to the mortgages getting paid off too fast, Well, if you have a revolving line of credit on your house, makes things a little bit more difficult to catch. But I think that, what we really need to be doing is looking at who benefits from all of this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were there in the court when I went up against a team of county attorneys who were all unlawfully representing Julie Marcus, right? And then you saw the shenanigans with the judge. I mean, we have had a complete infiltration of all branches of government and all agencies of government by a massive election corruption cartel. And that election corruption cartel isn't resigned to just Venezuela.
Yeah. It's right there in the great state of Florida, in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania.
Everywhere. Yeah. Arizona, Colorado, California. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why, right? The Senate and the Congress have typically, some of the lowest opinion polls of all Americans. Well, it's because they're selected. They're not elected.
Yeah.
Right?
So anything in your local cases you want to get out before we close shop here?
Yeah, we have some big stuff, big bombs dropping, some bombshells. So I'll have more about that. Bonji's fighting away in Palm Beach County, and we're rallying the troops, and we're documenting some pretty crazy things. We have the state attorney here in Pinellas County implicated in quite a bunch of misfeasance and malfeasance as well. But you can expect me on again very, very shortly once we drop some of the federal bombshells that are about to hit in the next few days.
Well, Chris, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I want to have you on pretty regularly now because we're really into this stopping the election fraud. I think it's coming to a crescendo. So
I hope so.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Todd. Bye-bye.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbals or herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? Mm-hmm. The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7. the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. So good morning and welcome to the Department of War. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to recognize and honor Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, the guardsman who was murdered in DC this past weekend. She is an American hero and we will never forget her service and sacrifice. While we mourn her loss, we will continue to pray for the full recovery of Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, the other service member critically injured in this heinous attack. This attack on our National Guardsmen in D.C. follows months of Democrat elected officials demonizing the National Guard, portraying them as a threat to our republic, and attempting to sow discord in their ranks. To name a few examples, Governor Gavin Newsom claimed that President Trump was fabricating emergencies in order to justify the deployment of the National Guard in some major cities. Governor J.B. Pritzker claimed that the deployment of the National Guard amounted to an attack on the American people. Outside an ICE facility in California, Rep. Maxine Waters taunted the troops standing guard and demanded to know whether they intended to shoot her. And of course, the seditious six urged members of our military to defy their chain of command in an unprecedented, treasonous, and shameful conspiracy to sow distrust and chaos in our armed forces. This rhetoric insults our warfighters who put their lives on the line every day to keep Americans safe, and it creates an environment where criminals feel emboldened to commit violent acts against them. Right now, over 2,200 National Guardsmen from all across the country are serving as a part of Joint Task Force DC, with an additional 500 on the way. Each one of them will continue working to ensure the safety of all who live, work, and visit the district. We will not lose sight of our mission. This targeting will only embolden our resolve. Our warriors are strong, and we will not back down until our capital and our cities are secure. Defending our homeland and rescuing America's greatest cities from endemic violence is the highest and best use of our military. I would also like to take a moment today to welcome all of you here to the Pentagon briefing room as official new members of the Pentagon Press Corps. We're glad to have you. Legacy media chose to self-deport from this building, and if you look at the numbers, it's pretty clear why no one followed them. National trust in these mainstream media outlets has cratered to 28%, the lowest ever recorded. The American people don't trust these propagandists because they stopped telling the truth. So we're not going to beg these old gatekeepers to come back, and we're not rebuilding a broken model just to appease them. Instead, we're welcoming new media outlets that actually reach Americans, ask real questions, and don't pursue a biased agenda. The public has moved on from the old model, and so will the Pentagon. This is the beginning of a new era. We look forward to working with you to keep the American people informed and to ensure transparency. In the interest of transparency, I want to provide an update on the department's operations against narco-terrorists in the Western Hemisphere. To date, there have been a total of 21 kinetic strikes on drug boats in our hemisphere, with 82 narco-terrorists killed. Each strike conducted against these designated terrorist organizations is taken in defense of vital U.S. national interests and to protect the homeland. Our operations in the Southcom region are lawful under both U.S. and international law, with all actions in compliance with the law of armed conflict. These actions have also been approved by the best military and civilian lawyers up and down the chain of command. A completely fake story in the Washington Post, now discredited by the New York Times, tried to mischaracterize these successful strikes in bad faith. It was an attempt to damage the secretary and the president, and the people saw through it. The phony Washington Post story even attributed statements to the secretary that were totally fabricated. He never said them. That is the epitome of fake news. As the White House confirmed yesterday, the decision to restrike the narco-terrorist vessel was made by Admiral Bradley, operating under clear and long-standing authorities to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States was eliminated. Secretary Hegseth stands behind Admiral Bradley 100%. Admiral Bradley made the right call, and unlike the previous administration, we have our warfighters back at this department. This department will defend our homeland. This is not a catchphrase, it is a commitment. And as the Secretary said, when it comes to killing narco-terrorists, we have only just begun. Lastly, I would like to announce that the War Department has created a new division for strategic marketing that will be led by Abby Lower, who will hold the title of Deputy Assistant to the Secretary of War for Strategic Marketing. The division will be a new core function within public affairs and will complement our media and strategic engagement teams. The purpose of this new division is to create marketing campaigns that support the War Department's military recruitment efforts, providing a halo effect to the great work the military services are already doing to recruit our nation's warfighters. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. Yes, Caitlin.
Thanks, Kingsley. Can you talk about the autonomy that's given to the commanders who are carrying out these operations, like Admiral Bradley, to make decisions? Like in this case, I'm assuming the first strike took out the boat and any actions that followed. Can you talk about the autonomy they're given?
Absolutely. So the Secretary has been very clear in every statement that we've released about these strikes that they are presidentially directed. And the chain of command functions as it should. And we make sure that commanders on the ground are taken, their positions are taken into account, and they are able to tell us and make decisions if they see things that need to be flagged. But at the end of the day, the Secretary and the President are the ones directing these strikes. And any follow-on strikes like those which were directed by Admiral Bradley, the Secretary 100% agrees with. Yes, Matt.
Kingsley, if Nicolas Maduro leaves Venezuela today, what role will the Department of War have in a post-Maduro Venezuela? And describe the process the administration will use to determine whether or not current members of the Venezuelan military or Venezuelan government have a role in a post-Maduro Venezuela.
Thanks for the question. So the department has a contingency plan for everything. We are a planning organization. If anything were to happen around the world, we have a response planned and ready. So we stand at the president's beck and call, our commander-in-chief, to do what is needed if called upon. And that will be what this department continues to focus on and continues to prepare for in regards to our ongoing operations in the Southcom region. Again, our focus is taking out narco-terrorists and rooting out that threat that is poisoning the American people. Every single boat that we strike saves 25,000 American lives. That is a crucial mission to protecting the homeland, and we're proud to be a part of it.
Just as a follow-up, quickly, so following the departure of Saddam Hussein, there was this desire to name every Ba'athist a terrorist. Does the administration take the view that any person who served in the Venezuelan military or Venezuelan government is definitionally a narco-terrorist?
That would be a determination for the president to make, but I can tell you that every single person who we have hit thus far who is in a drug boat carrying narcotics to the United States is a narco-terrorist. Our intelligence has confirmed that, and we stand by it. Yes, Monica.
Thanks, Kingsley. I have two questions, if I may. For your first question regarding Sarah Beckstrom, the 20-year-old West Virginia National Guardswoman who was shot and killed, was her family offered an Arlington burial, and or will there be plans to do so?
I know that the White House is working that out, so they might be better to describe what the plans are for that. But this department will, of course, support in any way we can, and have been, in close contact with the family, and the Secretary will continue to do so. So we'll keep you all updated on that.
Thank you. And my second question regarding Iran, there are reports that Iran's been planning on rebuilding its nuclear facilities. Iranian's president has said that it plans to rebuild its nuclear facilities with, quote, greater strength. Can you provide us on any sort of update on where that currently stands?
I can tell you that Operation Midnight Hammer was an absolute resounding success. Iran's nuclear capabilities were totally obliterated, and experts estimated that, it would take 2 years for them to recover. So thanks to President Trump's bold and swift action, we were able to dismantle that threat to the American people. And I think it was also a historic operation by virtue of the fact that there was a clear end state. We have seen this department get marred down in the Middle East in endless wars, in nation building. That has stopped under this president and this secretary. We now have a clear end state, a clear mission set, and Operation Midnight Hammer was a success in dismantling that. Yes, Laura.
Thanks so much for having me here today. Now that the president has started the process of designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign Islamic terrorist organization, will the Department of War still proceed with selling F-15 fighter jets to Qatar? And how will they be able to train Qatari pilots at their airbase in Idaho if Qatar is included in the designation?
Thank you for the question. We take very seriously our partnerships, and we always do thorough evaluations to make sure that they protect our intelligence, our operational security, and that they serve the best interests of the American people. The U.S. military has a longstanding partnership with Qatar, and we look forward to continuing that partnership at our airbase in Idaho. And I would just point out that for reference, the Mountain Home, Idaho airbase is not just Qataris that train there. There are also Singapore military folks that are there as well. So it is a base that we do a lot of foreign military training, and we are thankful for those partnerships, and we'll continue to evaluate all of those to make sure, again, that national security is protected. That is the Secretary's utmost priority.
But given the fact that the Qatari royal family and Qatar itself is the biggest financier, along with Turkey, of course, the financier of the Muslim Brotherhood, would that relationship and partnership be reevaluated since the designation could possibly include Qatar?
I'm not tracking any reevaluation at this time, but again, the Secretary really keeps national security top of mind, and this administration does as well, so we will always make sure that American assets are protected. Yes.
Hi, David Zier, Real America's Voice. It's great to be here. I want to know if you can confirm any additional National Guard deployments under Title 10 in additional cities, and have any governors reached out for help under Title 32 as well? And how do you determine how National Guard troops, how many are armed?
Great question. So I don't have anything to announce at this time in terms of new deployments, but I can tell you that our mission set is critical. We are keeping American cities safe all across this country, and we are going to remain committed to that. These missions aren't going to stop in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in DC. We understand the urgent threat that is facing many of these cities, and the National Guard is proud to step in alongside our law enforcement partners to help with that. And I can confirm that everybody in DC is now armed, and a lot of our DC National Guardsmen are now also doing joint patrols with members of the police department here in DC. So their safety is, of course, top of mind, and we will continue to make sure that they're able to do their jobs in keeping all of our great Americans safe across our cities. Yes, Bradley.
We're now 90 days into these Venezuelan drug boat strikes. A growing number of members on Capitol Hill are getting their mettle up with regard to war powers. If they do move forward with some sort of war powers effort, will the administration seek to challenge the validity of the war powers resolution, or will it comply?
I wouldn't want to get ahead of the president's decision-making process in regard to Venezuela, but I can tell you what I mentioned earlier is that the department is a planning organization. We are always ready. We have plans for every single contingency, and we are going to make sure that when it comes to narco-terrorism, we're dismantling that throughout the Western Hemisphere, and you've seen that in the success of our strikes.
One follow-up, if I may. 53% in a recent CBS YouGov poll said they support the strikes on these drug boats, but 70% said no military operations within Venezuela. Nevertheless, members of Congress are increasingly calling for regime change there. What's the Department of War's message to those members of Congress?
The Department of War stands behind the president 100%, and we will execute on the orders that our commander-in-chief gives us, and we're proud to do so. That will continue. And again, any decision that is going to be made about certain military actions in the Western Hemisphere region will be the president's alone. Yes.
Todd Wood from CDM's Armed Forces Press. There's been a lot of reporting that, yes, it's about drugs in Venezuela, but also possibly about election fraud electronically. Do you have any comment on that? And also, are assets, we've heard that special operations aviation assets are exercising for direct action missions in that region. Can you confirm that at all?
On your first question, I would refer you to the State Department. I think they would probably be able to give you a better answer on that. But in terms of your second question, I can tell you that we are conducting training missions and exercises. We've got the forward aircraft carrier now that is down there in the Southcom region. And as I said, the Department's a planning organization. So a big part of that planning is doing trainings and make sure that we're ready at a moment's notice to protect our interests and to protect the American people from narco-terrorism. Yes, RC.
Has there been a determination at this point from the Army Secretary on a Distinguished Service Medal for Specialist Sarah Beckstrom?
I would refer you to the Army for that, and if I hear anything, I will keep you posted. That would be wonderful news. Yes, James.
Hi, James O'Keefe. Nicholas Terza, branch chief here at the Pentagon, was caught on a video in the spring stating, quote, "Trump is illegitimate. We're going to resist him, quote, everything he does." We know there are other people like this that work here. My question is, what steps is the Department of War taking to identify and address personnel who are in the self-described resistance movement?
Thank you for the question. That's why the work you all do is so important. This is a big building, and we want to make sure that we have the absolute best people working at it to protect Americans every single day. We don't take lightly what every single civilian and military person in this building do every single day. They do a lot of hard work, and we want to make sure that they're up to the task and that they're on board and willing to serve our commander-in-chief, who was elected by the whole of the American people, to serve as our president. And we support him 100% here at the Department of War. That is our mission. That is our chain of command. So personnel is policy. The Secretary has said that many times, and I know you all in this room are aware of that as well. That was really the crux of his speech at Quantico not long ago to the generals. Our people are our most important asset. So we will continue to make sure that our people are consistently putting America first. That's something we care very much about. Yes, Alex.
Thanks, Kinsley. Are there plans to host or hold more of these regular press briefings? And if so, how frequently?
Absolutely, we'd love to. It'd be great to get everybody in here. I know we have the Christmas holiday coming up, but we'd love to make it a weekly or bi-weekly tradition. So we're excited to have you all in the Pentagon for those.
And we was receiving more readouts of the Secretary of War's meetings, with the President yesterday, much like the State Department and the White House, that provide readouts and scheduling and things like that. Will we be receiving more of those?
Absolutely. In the interest, as I said in my opening, in the interest of transparency, we want to make sure that you all are informed. That's a commitment we take seriously. Obviously, we're slightly different than other agencies in that we have national security and operational concerns, but we will tell you as much as we can because we want the American public to know all the incredible things that our warfighters are doing every single day and all the amazing initiatives the Secretary is pursuing here at the Department of War. Yes.
Thanks, Kinsley. Jordan Conrad from Gateway Pundit. I wanted to ask you, in May, the Secretary announced a new investigation into the Afghanistan withdrawal under Biden. In light of the recent events with one of these refugees killing a service member, is there any updates on that investigation?
I don't have any updates for you at this time, but I can tell you that the review that we're doing into the horrendous Afghanistan withdrawal under the previous administration, the Biden administration, is expected to be complete by summer of 2026. And we are committed to ensuring that this review, unlike others, is much more unredacted, that the American people are able to consume the report for themselves and see what truly happened on that fateful day and that fateful withdrawal. And we owe it to our service members to accomplish that. The review is being led by our chief Pentagon spokesman and senior advisor to the Secretary, Sean Parnell, an Afghan veteran himself. And he takes very seriously the responsibility to getting answers to the American people. So we are committed to that 100%. And in summer 2026, the public will be able to have that report. Yes.
Thank you, Kinsley. A question for you in regard to the Afghan withdrawal. When we brought all these migrants onto military bases, or these refugees onto military bases, we saw a surge in assault immediately after, sexual assault and physical assaults. And then all of a sudden, under the previous administration, we no longer learned of anything that was happening anymore on these military bases. Does this Pentagon plan on giving us some type of criminal data on that to see what actually happened when they were brought onto these military bases? And do we have any status updates on FBI investigations and such?
So for FBI investigations, anything that would be a criminal law enforcement matter would obviously be something to direct to the Department of Justice, as we cannot speak to that from our perch here at the Department of War. But what I can tell you is that we are aware of a lot of that activity that went on. It's despicable. One is too many, right? And we understand that the Biden administration unfortunately put our troops and our country last in many cases. The Secretary is committed to correcting that, and I think that's what you're going to see going forward. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about Somalia, which isn't talked about very much, but we have done 101 strikes in Somalia in 2025. And there was a raid carried out in some caves, and I'm quoting former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who I didn't realize would be here today, but he asked why we're sending, quote, hundreds of U.S. troops into fortified caves in Somalia to kill like 5 guys. And I think it's a good question as to why the U.S. military is still in Somalia.
Thank you for the question. So I can assure you, right, this is an America First Department of War and president. So we aren't conducting forever wars in Somalia. We're not seeking regime change. Or, we're not nation building. But I will say that this department's narrowly scoped, intelligence-driven counterterrorism operations in places like Somalia, alongside our partners, allow us to protect the American homeland from terrorist threats and to protect our interests. So we will continue to make sure that the American people are kept safe. That's our utmost priority. But, we're not isolationists. We're also not neocons. We're realists. We understand that threats face the American people every single day. We take that incredibly seriously, but at the same time, we're always going to make sure that we're putting America first.
And if I could follow up on Laura's question, actually, but from a different angle, she mentioned that are we reassessing our relationship with Qatar because of funding of the Muslim Brotherhood? It's been widely documented in mainstream Israeli papers that the Israeli government funded Hamas, which we also designate as a terrorist organization. Are we therefore reassessing our relationship with Israel because of this?
That would be a better question for the State Department, as they're the ones who have those foreign diplomatic channels. Yes, Ryan.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this press briefing. I wanted to get back to the Southcom strikes real quick, just broadly speaking, not specifically about the September 2nd strike, but broadly speaking, are we doing any kinds of post-strike assessments to determine that the intelligence that informed those strikes was accurate? Are we recovering any drugs on board those vessels? You mentioned each vessel struck is equivalent of 25,000 overdose deaths. So are we mostly picking up fentanyl or cocaine or what have you? What's going on with these boats? Like, what's on these boats?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I can tell you in terms of your question about intelligence that our intelligence absolutely confirms who these people are. And I can't get into right from this podium how we know that. I don't want to communicate to the enemy the ways in which we're carrying out these strikes. But I can tell you that without a shadow of a doubt, every single one of our military and civilian lawyers knows that these individuals are narco-terrorists. We know what they're carrying, where they're coming from, and where they're going. And they are trying to bring drugs to our shores that kill and hurt American citizens. The president takes that very seriously. And when he designated these groups designated terrorist organizations, that opened up a lot for us here at the Department of War. We can engage in ways that we never could before. So that's all I can say at the moment on that topic, but I can 100% affirm that we know without a shadow of a doubt who these narco-terrorists are. Yes, Wade.
So you were speaking earlier about the Washington Post report concerning the Secretary of War and Admiral Bradley. And my question is, does the Department of War plan on pursuing any sort of legal action against the Washington Post? And what consequences will there be for lying to the American people? Because, of course, the implication there was that Pete Hegseth and Admiral Bradley are war criminals. And that was the implication, and that's what a lot of people on social media were saying after the fact. So could you speak to that?
Yeah, it is frankly disgusting that the Washington Post would publish something that is so insanely false. And we've seen this from the mainstream media before, right? Anonymous sources that are being quoted that probably have no idea what's going on. And the Washington Post actually went so far as to falsely attribute a quote to the Secretary of War, that he never said. That is preposterous that they would write that and pass that off as true journalism. Thankfully, the New York Times stepped in and corrected the record and let the American people know that what they were publishing was absolutely fake news. So the Washington Post, I think readership should think twice before reading that outlet again. It is disgraceful that they call themselves journalists, and we told them as such, right? We get press queries like we do from all of you. We told them this story was completely fake news on Thanksgiving evening with a 3-hour deadline, and they still published it anyway. It's disgraceful, but thankfully the American people see through it. Yes, Jack.
Kingsley,
Does the Secretary's office or the Pentagon in general, the department, have a message for Senator Wicker, who as a Republican has now backed this inquiry into Secretary Hegseth, again, accusing him of war crimes? It seemed strange to see a Republican going after one of President Trump's own cabinet members.
So I can confirm that the Secretary of War spoke with Senator Wicker, and they had a good conversation where he was able to explain to him a lot of the rationale behind these strikes. And we work closely with all of our partners on the Hill, whether Republican or Democrat, to keep them up to date on what this department is doing in regards to the strike. So we will continue to do that, and we'll continue to brief members of HASC and SASC, and we look forward to continuing those relationships.
Quick follow-up, you mentioned working with partners on the Hill. Another senator on the Hill, the Democrat side, is Senator Mark Kelly. Now, we heard some reporting about a possible investigation into him regarding his status as a retired member of the United States Navy, still on pension, and therefore still under the jurisdiction of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And as such, his membership, you mentioned the seditious six, would that be grounds for possibly bringing him back to active service for an investigation, for NJP, or even a full court martial?
So you're correct. The Department of War received serious allegations of misconduct against Senator Mark Kelly, and in accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice and other applicable recommendations and regulations, we're doing a thorough review of all of these allegations. And the Secretary of War has tasked the Secretary of the Navy, John Phelan, with doing a thorough review, looking into all of these allegations and providing him an update on December 10th. So we will have more information to come on that. But I would just add that this despicable video that Mark Kelly participated in with the seditious six was a politically motivated influence operation that was an attempt to undermine the chain of command, to sow distrust and division in our armed forces. That is absolutely ridiculous, and it puts our warfighters at risk. And again, he doubled down on the Sunday shows. I don't know if you all saw him on the Sunday shows, but he basically insinuated that service members who do not defy President Trump's orders could face potential prosecution in the future when Democrats are back in power. He even called our troops and likened them to those of the Russian military. This is totally disgraceful from an elected official, and the department takes it very seriously, and that is why we have launched this review.
And just to be clear, so if Secretary Phelan were to recommend court-martial, that would be on the board?
What was the question? Sorry.
If Secretary Phelan were to recommend court-martial, that could be an option on the table?
All options are on the table at this moment in time, and we look forward to getting the Secretary of the Navy's review. And the Secretary of War has been very clear in his statements as well that he takes this extremely seriously, and it is unacceptable. That's all the time I have today. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you coming out.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on the SCIF. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 to noon Eastern. We got Emerald Robinson on tomorrow. It's going to be a great show. We're going to dig into the elections and what's going on in Venezuela and all her information that she's put out recently on what's actually happening with U.S. military operations in country and what happened during 2020. So join us tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow on the SCIF.